Have you ever wondered about buildings that seem too dangerous to exist, structures so precarious that they defy logic and challenge engineering? Well, today we're diving into 8 of the most dangerous buildings around the world, buildings that shouldn't even stand. From leaning towers to towering wooden monstrosities, these architectural feats push the boundaries of safety. But here's a question for you. Would you dare to step inside? Or do you think some buildings should just stay standing in photos and stories? Let's find out together. Leaning Tower of Pisa, Italy. Let's start with one of the most iconic yet dangerous buildings in the world, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You've probably seen it in countless photos, but have you ever thought about how something so tilted manages to stay standing? Originally constructed between the 12th and 14th centuries, this 56-meter-tall bell tower began leaning almost immediately after construction began due to soft, unstable ground beneath. The foundation, built on marshy soil, wasn't able to support the weight of the structure, and that's when the tilt began. Over the years, efforts to stabilize the tower have been made, from inserting lead counterweights to drilling into the ground to relieve pressure. Yet, despite these extensive measures, the tower still has an undeniable slant. In fact, at one point, engineers feared it might collapse entirely. It wasn't until the late 20th century that successful interventions began to reduce the tilt. But can you imagine living in a world where such an iconic landmark could collapse at any moment? It's a miracle it's still standing today. The tilt of the tower has given it its famous appearance, attracting millions of tourists each year who pose for that perfect holding up the tower shot. But beneath its playful exterior lies the reality of an engineering nightmare. It's almost as if it's daring the world to come closer despite the risks. And while it's still safe to visit, would you trust a building that has defied the laws of gravity for centuries? Capital Gate, Abu Dhabi, UAE. Next up is the Capital Gate in Abu Dhabi, a 165-meter skyscraper that stands as a testament to bold engineering. Some might say too bold. Often referred to as the Leaning Tower of Abu Dhabi, Capital Gate tilts 18 degrees westward, making it one of the world's most impressive and potentially dangerous leaning buildings. This massive tilt isn't just for show. It was meticulously planned by architects who wanted to defy traditional vertical designs and create a structure that pushed the boundaries of what we thought was possible. What's truly remarkable about Capital Gate is the way it leans. The building is designed to lean further than the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but unlike Pisa, which leans due to structural weakness, Capital Gate was intentionally engineered this way. The building uses a unique system of reinforced concrete and a central core that shifts to create the tilt. But despite these advances, there's an undeniable sense of danger. Imagine standing inside the building and feeling the tilt. It's a disorienting sensation. This modern architectural marvel is the tallest building in Abu Dhabi, home to offices and luxury apartments, but it's also a reminder of how far engineers are willing to go to break the norms. Still, with that much tilt, one has to wonder, what happens if the building's foundations are compromised by an earthquake, high winds, or something unforeseen? While it has passed rigorous safety tests, this bold structure constantly challenges our sense of security, reminding us that sometimes beauty comes with a risk. WoZoCo Apartments, Amsterdam, Netherlands. Let's talk about WoZoCo Apartments in Amsterdam, an architectural marvel that looks like it's straight out of a science fiction film. Located in the heart of the city, these apartments were designed with one goal in mind: to maximize the use of space in an increasingly crowded urban environment. However, this bold design has earned the building a reputation for being both remarkable and dangerous. So what's the problem? The building is home to a series of cantilevered balconies that extend far beyond the base, creating an overhanging effect. While visually striking, this design raises serious concerns about structural integrity, especially in high winds or severe weather conditions. The risk becomes clear when you take a look at these precariously hanging balconies, each of which seems to be hanging on by the thinnest of margins. Imagine being on one of those balconies during a storm. You'd feel the sway and the tension in the air. Even though the building was constructed with the latest engineering technology, some critics argue that it pushes the limits of what should be considered safe. These extended, unsupported balconies put the apartments at risk of structural failure, and the reality is that any building relying so heavily on balance and the laws of physics might be teetering on the edge of danger. Despite this, the WoZoCo apartments have become a landmark in the city, admired for their innovative design. But should a building like this exist, knowing how close it comes to being a potential disaster, The tension between art and practicality in architecture is put to the test here, making the WoZoCo apartments a prime example of how bold design can sometimes walk a fine line between genius and recklessness. Meteora Monasteries, Greece. Next, let's journey to one of the most visually stunning yet perilous places on Earth, Meteora Monasteries in Greece. These ancient monasteries are perched atop towering, weathered rock formations, some as high as 400 meters above the ground. To say that these monasteries are precariously located is an understatement. Built between the 14th and 16th centuries, these monasteries were designed to be isolated from the world, serving as safe havens for monks seeking solitude and spiritual reflection. But their location? Well, that's where the danger lies. The construction of these monasteries on such towering rock formations was an extraordinary feat of engineering. The monks used ropes, ladders, and even pulleys to ascend to their homes, creating an atmosphere of both awe and danger. Imagine living in a place where you have to climb hundreds of feet to reach your home, and there's no easy way to escape in an emergency. The sheer isolation and remoteness of the Meteora monasteries made them both safe from invaders but also incredibly dangerous for those who lived there. Over time, the monastery's precarious position has raised concerns about their stability, especially with the erosion of the rocks caused by wind and rain. Though some monasteries remain open to visitors, it's impossible not to notice the inherent danger of the location. The monks who once lived here seemed willing to risk everything for peace and prayer, but in today's world, the Meteora monasteries stand as a reminder of just how fragile even the most magnificent structures can be when they're built on a foundation that nature constantly tests. Puerta de Europa, Madrid, Spain. Now let's talk about the Puerta de Europa in Madrid, Spain, a building that's as iconic as it is unsettling. Standing tall at 26 stories, these two leaning towers are not your typical skyscrapers. Located in the financial district of Madrid, they are designed with a bold twist. The towers are intentionally tilted 15 degrees. Now, imagine that for a second. Walking into an office building where everything is slightly off-center. It might sound cool in theory, but in practice, it's a bit unnerving. The towers were designed by renowned architects Enrique Álvarez Soto and César Pelli, and their daring design has earned them the nickname the Gate of Europe. But here's the catch, these structures aren't just quirky architectural feats. They're a dangerous experiment in defying gravity. The tilt of the towers was engineered to create a visually dynamic effect, but this design choice has raised eyebrows among engineers. While the buildings were rigorously tested, the question remains, how safe is a structure with such a sharp tilt? Over the years, the Puerta de Europa towers have stood their ground against winds, earthquakes, and the test of time. But there's something inherently risky about such an unconventional design. The tilt, while stable for now, could potentially lead to unforeseen complications, especially if the building's foundation ever faces instability or the forces of nature challenge its design. In a city where historical architecture reigns supreme, Puerta de Europa is a stark contrast. It's modern, bold, and defies expectations, yet the idea of towering structures leaning toward you feels almost unnatural. Should a building this precarious really be in the heart of a bustling city? The Puerta de Europa continues to challenge perceptions, straddling the line between architectural genius and risky innovation. Sutyagin House, Arkhangelsk, Russia. Let's move to Russia, where we find one of the most controversial buildings in architectural history, the Sutyagin House. Built by local entrepreneur Nikolai Sutyagin, this wooden skyscraper reached 13 stories high and was an absolute eyesore and a dangerous one in Arkhangelsk. The house wasn't just a quirky residence, it was an experiment in defiance, against regulations, against safety, and against common sense. What makes Sutyagin House stand out, apart from its sheer height, is its unorthodox construction. No permits, no safety checks, just an ambitious vision to build a towering wooden structure. This rebellious creation caught the attention of locals and tourists alike, who marveled at its chaotic design and questionable stability. The construction began in the 1990s, and over the years, it became infamous for being a symbol of architectural anarchy. The house didn't just grow in height, it expanded horizontally too, with multiple levels that looked like they were slapped together without any thought to balance or safety. It's amazing in a way that it didn't collapse under its own weight. However, the building's lack of structural integrity was glaring, and as it grew taller, it became more and more of a risk to anyone nearby. The authorities, of course, eventually stepped in, deeming the building unsafe, and in 2008, it was demolished, but not before gaining international notoriety. Sutyagin House represents both the absurdity and the boldness of unchecked ambition. It's a reminder that not all projects should be allowed to go unchecked, no matter how creative or unconventional they may seem. While it might have been a sight to behold, it was also a disaster waiting to happen, proving that when you mix audacity with a lack of expertise, the result can be both dangerous and ultimately unsustainable. Would you ever consider living in a house like this? Astra Tower, Hamburg, Germany. Let's dive into one of the most haunting remnants of industrial history, Astra Tower, located in Hamburg, Germany. Known for its decaying, abandoned state, this once bustling brewery building has become a magnet for urban explorers and thrill-seekers. But, beyond its intriguing facade, Astra Tower stands as a monument to neglect and danger. Originally, this building served as the heart of the Astra brewery, producing beer for decades before it was left to rot. Today it's a shell of its former self, with parts of the structure crumbling, the walls covered in graffiti and windows shattered by time. Walking through Astra Tower today feels like stepping into a forgotten world, where once lively spaces are now eerily silent. The structure's decline is both fascinating and terrifying. With deteriorating floors and crumbling walls, it's hard to imagine anyone would want to explore this once proud landmark, but every year hundreds of urban explorers risk their lives to capture the tower's haunting beauty on film. They enter through broken windows or cracks in the walls, navigating through rooms filled with debris, broken glass, and exposed metal beams. The danger here isn't just in the building's isolation, it's in the very structure itself. Despite its eerie allure, Astra Tower is a catastrophe waiting to happen. The building is considered unsafe, with parts of it actively collapsing, posing a serious risk to anyone who dares to venture inside. Yet, despite the warnings, the building's dangerous charm continues to draw people in. It serves as a stark reminder of how quickly once thriving structures can decay into dangerous ruins if left unchecked. Takasugi-an, Nagano, Japan. Now let's journey to Japan and visit Takasugi-an, a small tea house that's anything but ordinary. Built precariously on stilts over a fast-moving river in Nagano Prefecture, Takasugi-an is a striking example of how a beautiful concept can quickly turn into a dangerous risk. The tea house was built in 2003 by renowned architect Terunobu Fujimori, who is known for his unconventional and minimalist designs. Takasugi-an stands about 10 meters above the ground, with a slender, delicate structure supported only by a few wooden stilts. At first glance, it might look like a tranquil retreat, offering stunning views of the surrounding river and mountains. But there's something unsettling about its location, perched as it is on the edge of stability. The design, while stunning in its simplicity, raises serious concerns about safety. Located right above a river, the tea house is vulnerable to natural disasters such as flooding, heavy rain, or even a strong earthquake. The building's stilts are not particularly robust, and the structure itself seems to defy modern building codes. When you stand under it and look up, it's impossible to ignore the fact that this small, picturesque tea house is only a moment away from disaster. While Takasugi-an has garnered attention for its unique design and stunning beauty, it's also a chilling reminder of how art and architecture can sometimes push the boundaries of safety. The tea house remains standing for now, but the question lingers. How long can it defy nature's forces before it becomes another story of an architectural marvel lost to time? Thanks for joining me on this wild ride through some of the most dangerous buildings in the world. What do you think? Would you dare to visit any of these? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss an exciting episode here on Dwellscape. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more jaw-dropping content. See you next time.